Hello everyone, today I want to show you how to make a heating and air conditioning proposal using AirMatch. And I'm going to show a unitary system from American Standard, but we also have built-in AHRI equipment databases from various other unitary brands, as well as mini splits. I will show mini splits in a separate video because that's a little bit of a different setup for how you build your system. You can also bring in equipment from not only other heating and air conditioning brands, but actually other equipment. If you have plumbing equipment, any roofing equipment, anything you want to sell, you can also put that in through our custom build, which is included in all of our AirMatch subscriptions. The first step you want to do when logging into AirMatch is to either select a client from your list of existing clients that you have. You will initially start on the client's feature. You can switch features through this menu on the top. So you'll start with your list of clients, but let's assume that we have a brand new client and we're in their home and we want to create their account as well. So on the bottom right, you can see an Add New Client button. And if I click that, I can enter information about the client. And when I get to the address, if I start typing an address, it will autocomplete using Google Maps. As long as you're on the internet, if you're offline, you can build proposals and you can do pretty much everything I show in this video. This is one step though that does require an internet connection because we are looking online to autocomplete that address. This is very helpful because if I select one of these, it fills in all the fields for me. I don't have to type in all the various fields. It also is great for preventing typos and things like that. It just makes sure you've spelled the city and street and everything correctly and that you got the correct zip code. So it's a useful way to save you a little bit of time. And let's say we can enter their phone number and an email address. If they have a separate address if they live in one place and that you're installing the equipment somewhere else, or they have multiple addresses, you can set a separate address for the installation, but let's assume that it's all the same address. You can also reassign this to another design specialist if you are a manager. So if you have a client and you want to move that client maybe from one design specialist to another, you can do that with this dropdown. And the next thing we can do is click the Done button on the bottom right to kind of save that client. And then we can go ahead and create their proposal. This will create a proposal using the brand that you have selected on the top right in this dropdown menu. Because this is a demo account, I have various different brands here. Typically though, you're just going to have the brands that you have subscribed to in your AirMatch subscription. But if I want to make an American Standard proposal, I can just click Create Proposal, and it takes me to the Systems feature on the top and the first tab, which is System. So this is where I can define what equipment I want to include in the proposal. So let's say I want to create a gas-electric split system. You have various types to pick from. If I pick gas electric split system, it's going to ask me for a tonnage and a flow direction. So let's pick upflow. And then it's going to immediately pop up and show an option of all the condensers that I've set up with pricing in my American Standard build. It also shows me a brief description, a model number, and the maximum SEER and EAR ratings that you can get with this particular condenser. So if I pick this, I'm not guaranteed to get a 22 SEER, but that's if I match it with the correct furnace and the correct coil, which we will make as easy as possible. These are all covered by AHRI matchups. So our whole database stores all the AHRI matchups for this brand. And as long as you supply a price for that piece of equipment, it will show in this dropdown. So no matter which of these I pick, it's going to show me only furnaces that can match up with that condenser. So it takes the guesswork out of figuring out whether pieces of equipment match up together. This is whether they match up according to AHRI. So you may see a matchup you don't want to make. Let's say you pick a 5-ton condenser. You probably don't want to pair that with a 36,000 BTU furnace because that may not really make a lot of sense. But as long as AHRI provides a rating for it, it will show here and it will be an option. So it's up to you still to kind of determine the appropriate, for example, BTU rating you want for the furnace, the efficiency that you want. But this shows you everything that AHRI says will match up with that. I have my ultra low NOx, I have various different tiers I can pick from. And again, this shows us the maximum SEER and EAR ratings that we can get if we pick this furnace. It will depend, of course, on which coil we select. Along the left side, we just have a very simple diagram showing you how a split system looks. And as you pick different elements of the system, it highlights them. So currently I'm picking the furnace, so it's kind of showing that the furnace is selected. In case a client is just curious, well, how does this work? You have an indoor unit, you have outdoor, how do they connect together? That's just a minor demonstration of how that basic layout looks. So let's say I want to pick an 80,000 BTU 97% furnace. I select that, and now it's going to show me the coils that are available to match with the condenser and furnace that I've just selected. This shows me every coil that matches that I have provided a price for. And we have a separate video about how you get your pricing into AirMatch, which you can look up. That's our dynamic database video. So now is when I determine the final SEER and EAR rating by picking the coil that I've chosen to match with this system. So let's pick this one. Then it's going to allow me to pick a thermostat. Normally I'd have more thermostats in here. For this particular account, I just have one option, but you can set up various different types of thermostats in your settings. Now it's going to ask me for the installation. These are installations that are compatible, that I have designated as compatible with this type of system. So that's something else you can set up in the manager menu when you're setting up your installations. Let's say that this is a garage closet split system. And when I select it, it shows me the scope of work that I've predefined. And there's defaults, so you don't have to set all these up from scratch, but these are options that you can change. And this sets up my pricing, my markups, everything is all pre-configured. So I don't have to select any other options regarding my installation. It pulls all that up and it'll all be correctly shown and included in the proposal. I don't have any labor warranties available in this particular setup, so I'll skip that section. And there's also some pre-configured other warranties. I can also add a parts warranty if I choose to. And then you have the option of rating this system. So you can give it a good, better, best rating. In this particular setup, I have changed these to say silver, gold, and platinum to kind of match what American Standard calls their different tiers. But by default, this will be good, better, and best. But you can go into your manager menu and you can change the name of these. So that's what I've done for this particular example. Or you can not provide a rating for the system. But let's say this is my gold level system. If I set up multiple systems, I'll have the option of later showing those and comparing them to show the client their different options. I can move on to the next step by either clicking this next button on the bottom right, or I can pick from the tabs if I want to skip over and jump to another step. So if I click next, the first thing we'll see is indoor air quality. This is a place where you would generally put your filtering, your air filters, your HERS testing, duct related work. Anything related to the ducting tends to fall into this category. You can also rename this category if you don't want an entire page dedicated to indoor air quality, but this is how we have it set up by default. So I can go in here and select a few different options. If there's something that has a quantity, so this one is a quantity item, I can say I want 3 of these. If there's something that's by the foot, it'll also give you that option of adding however many feet you'd like. On the right-hand side, we have what we call the value builders. So these are things that you typically want to show on the proposal just to show useful things that you always provide with each job. So you may want to mention that we wear booties, or we use drop cloths, or we dispose of your old equipment, we're bonded, we're family owned, those types of things. So these are things that typically you've set up with no price. So we have a yes to all button that will just automatically add everything that's in this right-hand column. And we show those all in green just to show you that these are those value builder items that are typically free. They're just things that you want to have shown on the proposal as informational. They're all marked with this icon, which if you hover over it, it'll shows on proposal. This means that these will be displayed explicitly on the proposal document. You can see that most of the others do not have that. We have one here, the American Standard 2 zoning. This does have that icon. So this is something you can configure in the manager menu, which of these items you want explicitly listed on the proposal and which you do not want to show, just to save room and not crowd your proposal with too much information. Once I've selected the options I want here, I can move on to custom items, which is the next tab. Custom items is essentially the same thing as indoor air quality. These items structurally are exactly the same. They work the same way in terms of setting up pricing. You can have quantity or feet. Very, very similar feature, and you can actually name these however you'd like. So you could have custom items and custom items 2. You can set these up however you prefer, and you can designate how they're laid out in terms of the column layout and everything. But these are very simple to add because all the pricing is something that you will have set up in the manager menu in advance. Now I can move on to my additional investments tab. The first box we have here is for any items you want to add on that aren't set up as custom items and they're not the actual equipment that's included in the proposal. So for example, if I want to add a whole house fan and maybe we don't have whole house fan set up as a custom item, I can come in here and just add any item I want, give it whatever price I want. And then if the client says, yes, I want the whole house fan, make sure you check the accept checkbox, because that will make sure that on the proposal it shows that they've accepted that and it'll include this in the price. If you don't click accept, it will not be included in the proposal pricing. You can add multiple items. You can delete them using the delete button. So it's a very simple way to add on something that you don't have set up in advance. The next option we have is our ESA, which is your service agreement. For this example, we have a base level that has 1 year free. This shows what is included in your ESA. This is all stuff that you can configure. And there's a special ESA document that will be sent to them in DocuSign, or you can save it as a PDF that lists out the information that you see here. So it's a nice way to remind someone what they're signing up for when they sign up for that ESA and let them know what the value and benefits are. You can select between the different tiers and they have different pricing. You can select how many years of that plan you want to give that client. And then again, you want to make sure you select the accept checkbox, because if you don't accept the ESA, it will not be included in the proposal. So this is a nice way to review it with the client. And then once they say, yeah, okay, I want it, you can accept it. And it will also explicitly show if they did not accept it so that you can remind them, I offered you this, you said you did not want it included. Below that, we have a box for installation notes. These are private notes, which we make sure we have this text here to remind you that these are not notes that will be shown on the proposal or shown to the client anywhere. So if you just have information that really isn't necessary to share with the client, such as information about how to enter the home, what additional information you might want to provide to your installation crew, you can put that information here. There's a separate field that shows on the proposal, which we'll get to later, where you can enter whatever other text you'd like. So once we're done, we can move on to the ESA tab. They did accept the ESA, and here's where you can select a preset, such as split system gas electric, and it will check yes for all the items that are typically included in that ESA program. You can also manually select and deselect different items, but this is a way to quickly select them using these presets, which you can also configure in the manager menu. Now we'll move on to the total investment screen, which is we start getting into the more serious parts of the proposal. So first of all, we can select a permit. You can have as many permits for different cities as you like, and you can have all the pricing pre-set up, so it sets a different permit based on the price of the job. We also have a special concerns box. So this is an area where you can type information that you do want to have shown on the proposal, and it reminds you of that with this little note here. So it's similar to installation notes, but this one's actually going to be on the proposal where the client can see it. So if you have anything you want to mention, like, please be careful with their dog, please look out for the delicate items in the hallway, those are things that you could list here, and they would be helpful that the client knows that you are looking out for them by having those notes visible. We also have a section called rebates and tax credits, and there is a separate entire video about this. So if you're curious about more details, you can watch that separate video. But essentially, we just have a way to add as many instant rebates, mail-out rebates, and tax credits as we want. So let's say in our area, we have a SMUD energy saving rebate for $500. We can add that. We can also say, there's an additional mail-out rebate. Let's say that's from PG&E, and that's for $200. And then let's say they are installing a system that, for whatever reason, makes them eligible for an energy savings tax credit. You can also put a tax credit in here. And this does not subtract mail-out rebates or tax credits from the proposal total. It will only subtract instant rebates. So if we look below, we'll see how that's reflected once you get to the proposal part. And then you can also delete these if you decide to remove anything. It's a very simple way to add whatever rebates and tax credits you want. Now we move on to the actual financing and the price of the proposal. So currently we have two different ways to do financing. One is through GoodLeap. So if you sign up with GoodLeap, you can have access to the GoodLeap feature where you can actually apply instantly and get an instant approval with a soft credit check. And it's a very powerful way to provide someone an approved amount. So you can go through the approval process and say, hey, you're approved up to twice the cost of this proposal I'm showing you. So we can actually show you other options. Very powerful way to compel someone to see that they can afford a particular system. So GoodLeap's a great way to go, and we'll have a separate video about the GoodLeap financing and how that all works. For this demo, I'll just show the standard financing, which shows preset financing options that you've configured in the manager menu, which we can help you set up when you're onboarding and getting set up with AirMatch. But essentially, you can have any options in here that you want. You can have fixed financing, you can have credit cards, you can have cash, whatever you want to set up. So let's say I'm picking a GoodLeap financing option I've set up in advance. The main difference here is this type of financing, we don't actually have an application process to get approved. This is just a way to basically do the math for you and show you how that financing will reflect the monthly payment and to designate on the proposal that you've offered the person that financing with that particular term. GoodLeap, however, is an actual loan application process that will get you an actual approval and create a real loan. So this one's much more simple to use, but is very, very flexible because of all the different financing types you can set up. So once we've selected a financing type, that's when we'll actually see the proposal price. Until you select a financing option, we don't show the total price. So that allows you to kind of wait until that financing element is there to show the pricing. You have an option of an additional investment, which is essentially a price adjustment that you can make if for some reason you don't want to provide this through an instant rebate or through any other kind of method of adjusting the price. If you wanted to, for whatever reason, offer this person some kind of special discount to say, I know you said you had an issue with this or that, I'm going to give you a special offer and take $200 off, if you agree that you're going to, accept this proposal and as a kind of a good faith gesture, you can make that adjustment right here. You can also make this a positive value if you want to add on any additional cost for whatever reason. Though typically that would probably be better off done through a custom item. Often people have a custom item with a fixed price such as $100 each, and they can go in there and just add that custom item and add as many of those as needed to increase the price of the proposal. These are configurable, so you can limit your design specialists so that they can only adjust the price a certain amount. You can allow no price adjustment, or you can say up to $500 can be deducted, and there's no limit to how much you can add on. So those are all configurable. So you can limit how much a design specialist is able to adjust the price. Current investment is essentially our subtotal of everything we've reviewed so far. And then we have the additional investments. So this is the whole house fan that we showed and that additional investments tab. This would be the total price of any of those individual items that you'd added on. Then we have our ESA. In our case, the ESA did not have a cost because we offered them just the basic 1-year free ESA that we offer. So there's no price, but typically this is where it would show the initial first year payment price that you have for that ESA. Below that, we have the instant rebate. Any instant rebates will be shown separately listed here. So if I added a second instant rebate, let's just call this March special. Let's say that's something that my company is offering just as a special instant rebate for the month of March. That will now be shown separately here. So we have our SMUD instant rebate for $500. We have our March special instant rebate for $400. So these are explicitly shown as deductions from this price. Whereas you'll notice it's not showing the tax credit and it's not showing the mail-out rebate because those should not be reflected in this price. Those are things that have to be handled after the purchase is made. Once you review the total investment price, so this is your grand total price, not including the down payment, and this is where you would, if a client says, yes, I'm happy with this, I want to move forward, typically you would want to check the accept checkbox. And what this will do is it'll send an email to your back office letting you know a proposal has been sold, and it will mark that proposal as accepted, just to differentiate it from various proposals you might create that don't end up getting accepted. This is a way to differentiate those two different types of proposals. You don't have to check this box. The proposal can still be sent to DocuSign. You can still print it out and sign it. It doesn't actually change your business practice of how you're selling it. It's just a way in AirMatch to let the software know that this job has been accepted. This shows their estimated payment based on the financing option that we picked. And then down below, we can enter an initial investment, which is a down payment. And you'll notice that in real time, as I'm typing a value, it's adjusting the estimated payment and the amount that's ending up being financed. So that way, anytime you change this, you can see that instant payment, the estimated payment change instantly. Below, you can select the date that you estimate the job will be started and completed. So let's say that next Tuesday, there's a crew available to do this job, and they think it'll be a 3-day job. So we set the start and end dates for that. And now we're done and we're ready to move on to the actual documents, the proposal itself. So we click next and we end up on our documents tab. So this has various different documents. You can print any of these, you can save them as a PDF, and you can also send a DocuSign envelope that includes a couple of the different documents to sign digitally. If you are on an iPad, instead of seeing the print and save buttons, you will see a share button, which brings up the iOS share dialog, which is a very, very flexible way to share that document. So that essentially creates the same thing. It creates a virtual digital document, but you can instantly iMessage it to a client or to someone else in your team. You can instantly email it to them. You can also open it up in the markup application that's built into iOS, which lets you draw on the document. So if you wanted to actually sign it, give them an Apple Pencil or another stylus and have them sign it, or they could just sign it with their finger. You could also use that to circle something on the proposal and point it out and annotate that document with whatever notes you want to provide. So it's very powerful on iPad what you can do with that share button. But here on a Windows or Macintosh computer, you can print or save the PDF as two separate options. The first document that we see is the proposal. And obviously this is the most important document, showing your company logo, the contact information for the customer, and it shows the equipment in the job, it shows the AHRI rating if that's applicable, and it shows the gold rating you've provided for that proposal, the equipment information, your scope of work, which is all the information from your installation, plus any indoor air quality and custom items that you've added on that have that show on proposal option selected. It also gives warranty details. It shows the details of the service agreement that you've offered. And then here's where we have those value builders that I mentioned. These are things that are just shown here as information to say, here's all the nice things that we provide with all of our heating and air conditioning installations. Below that, we have a summary of our rebates and tax credits. So we show that instant rebate and the value of that. We show the mail out, the tax credit, and the other instant rebate. And we also have this language below that tries to explain that instant rebates will be deducted immediately, other ones will not. It also mentions how really tax credits are kind of up between you and the IRS or state to kind of determine what tax credits you might be eligible for. Just that language there as disclosures to kind of inform the client. Below that, we get into our totals. So we have our additional investments. So this is where we see that whole house fan that they accepted. If you don't accept it, it will show declined here, but it'll still list it just to let them know, hey, I did offer you that. You said you didn't want the whole house fan, so it's designated there. And then we have a section of totals that are very similar to what we saw on the previous total investment tab. So we have essentially a subtotal. We have the additional investments, the service agreement. We have the total price of the instant rebates that are being deducted. And then we have the grand total, the down payment, and the amount that's being financed. To the left, we have the details of the financing program that they've selected. So here we have our Good Leap 12-year 6.9% and what the payment is and the rate. And then below that, we have the start and end dates of this particular proposal. Below that, we have the areas where they can sign. And again, if you're on an iPad, you could sign it with a pen or with a stylus or with your finger. Or if you want to send a digital document for them to sign, you can click the DocuSign button, and this will pop up a dialog letting you select the proposal, the disclosures, and the service agreement document. And here you can leave everything as the default for the customer, or you can provide a separate email address if they actually say, oh, you know what, I prefer you send it to my other account for whatever reason. Please send it to my home, email account, my personal email account. You can set a different email for the purposes of sending this DocuSign. You can also add a second buyer. So let's say they have a spouse who also should be included and should sign this digital document. You can add a spouse and their email, or any other person that should sign the document. You can include that second buyer, and they will also be sent the DocuSign envelope to sign. Below that, you have your own email address, which you've configured as the design specialist, and you can change this on the fly as well if for some reason for this particular job you want to use a separate email address. Once I click Send Documents, this will create the DocuSign envelope and send it immediately. So that way the person could sign right away. They can sign on their phone, they can sign on their computer, and you will also get a copy as the design specialist so that you can also sign. So a very powerful feature because a lot of people prefer to do that digital signing. You don't have to carry a printer around with you. You can just send it right to them. They sign it on their phone and they're done. It's also helpful if they say, I want to wait till my spouse gets home and to talk it over with them. You can send them the DocuSign right away, and then later on that evening, they can talk it over and say, all right, I'm ready to go. They can just go right back to that DocuSign email, sign it, send it back to you, and you're done. In addition to the proposal, the disclosures document is a more lengthy document that has a lot of the legal language that's useful to disclose to your client. But this includes your specific information and the client's information, the total price of the job, and various other details. So a very useful document for covering all the different legal language that you need to include. You have the option of printing out a blank proposal or saving a PDF of it. This is just for a case where you might want to manually write in information and just have a blank version of the proposal to use. The pull sheet is details for you as the company to keep track of what equipment was sold to this person, what the price was, etc. There's also a document called the summary document, which is similar to the pull sheet, but has more information. And this document is only available if you have the manager role. So your design specialists won't have access to this, so they won't see the equipment pricing, they won't see the markups and things like that if you don't want them to. Only people who you have given the manager role to will see this document. In addition to breaking down the equipment and the pricing of everything, what the markups are, how your installation is priced, all that information's here, as well as the totals, and it also lists out the additional items and how many hours are included, how many feet, what the cost was. It gives you a very detailed breakdown. In addition to that, it has a gross profit margin calculation. So this section here shows you your overall gross profit margin, your gross profit margin per man day, etc. This will only be accurate if you have set your markups properly for your equipment and you've set markups for installations and for your labor and things like that. So that's all stuff that we can guide you through when you're onboarding and getting set up with AirMatch. We also have an ESA document that breaks down what they're getting in the service plan. So this is a more client-facing document. That's why we include this in the DocuSign envelope as an option. By default, it is included. So if they've accepted the ESA, that's a useful item to include. If they did not accept the ESA, it's probably better to uncheck this and send that along, which we default to that option if you haven't accepted the ESA. The purchase order would be just a list of the equipment for your procurement department to make sure things get ordered. And then the AHRI certificate is something that's unique to AirMatch. I haven't seen this in any other piece of software. We can instantly generate an AHRI certificate for the matchup that you've selected, and it includes the SEER rating, it includes the AHRI reference number. This is a very powerful thing to include because this is your documentation for the client to let them know that the SEER rating you've offered them and the matchup that you've given them is an AHRI approved matchup. So it's an additional way to designate the fact that you have actually given them a matchup that's valid and gives you this particular SEER rating. This may be required for a certain rebate, or it may be just helpful information for you to have that credibility with the client about what the efficiency is of the system and to make sure that it is actually a matchup that's valid. So over here, you can print or save any of these. You can instantly save a PDF. So if you just want to save a PDF and, do something with that document later on, mark that up, send it to them, that's an option. But DocuSign is the most popular way to quickly deliver these documents to the client. So that's an overall quick summary of how to create a proposal. Once you get used to doing this, it's a very quick process. In here, I got into a little bit more detail about all the different options. But when you go back and create proposals, you'll realize that it's something you can do extremely quickly. And the fact that these matchups, the equipment you're picking from, the fact that we have that AHRI database is something that's unique to AirMatch. And that's really the power of our software in terms of not just making the whole process really easy and setting up all your pricing, but the fact that we have that matchup capability where you're going to get a matchup that's valid. It's a very powerful aspect of AirMatch that you won't see in other products that we're aware of. So we hope this gave you a little bit of a background. Again, there's a separate video on those ductless proposals, the mini split options, because that system screen is a little bit different. Almost everything else is the same, but the system screen is a little different when you're dealing with a multi-zone ductless system. So we'll show that in a separate video. But we hope you enjoyed this, and please contact your customer success people if you have any questions about how to create proposals in AirMatch.